Abraham Amaliba, he's a legal practitioner and a member of the NDC's legal and communication teams. He's in the studio. Thanks for joining me, Abraham.
Thank you for having me.
But we have to start the whole discussion premise on this about the political parties and the subject of whether the EC would have to ban them because they don't have parties scattered across the country. Just trying to meet a certain regulation, we're told.
Yes.
Now, what regulation is that then, and how is that so critical?
Let me say good morning to your viewers.
Good morning.
I've always known that since Charlotte said is the EC chair, she will go heavily on the laws of the Electoral Commission. When she was first appointed, I said what she was going to bring on board is her legal background. And I'm not surprised that she's taking a look at the laws and she begins to think that it's time to implement the laws. And so when you look at the Political Parties Act, it clearly indicates that political parties must have presence, they should be visible in a number of locations in the country before you can be allowed to operate. I think that is what she's trying to enforce. But is it appropriate now? Seeing that we are just about some few months to elections, could she have done this a long time ago? I think that yes, the timing is bad. I am of the view that if she could tamper mercy with justice. This matter came up during Afarijan's time as to whether those political parties who have not met the requirements should still be on our books or not.
Yeah.
But Afarijan gave it a human face. I always knew that Charlotte will be heavy on the law, and I'm not surprised that she has brought this back because of a law background. The smaller parties are protesting. I've heard Nana Konedu threaten that she'll go to court. I don't know on what basis, because if there's a law that says that you must meet a certain threshold before you can operate, you can't go to court and say what? I've heard her indicate that in this day and age, you don't need physical offices. I think she wants to say that, look, you can operate from wherever you are. But the law for the time being is the law until there's an amendment. I've heard Edmond Daly also talk about dialoguing. Today they are going for IPAC meeting. I'm sure this matter will come up. I am of the view that the timing is bad. And so if Charlotte is listening, I'm thinking that if she could, defer this to the next elections, maybe after the elections, she can start putting in place all this system. But I think that the political parties have invested so much to get to this point. For them to be told that they are going to take them off the books will be too much for them. So I think, yes, it's good to implement the laws, but I think she has to give a human face to it. Yeah.
Since 1992, so we've been in this very dispensation for a long time. May not be too long like other well-developed democracies, etc. But how realistic or unrealistic is it for the law to demand so much of the political parties that fall in this very category? We categorize them as smaller parties, so to speak, that they can or can't have offices in all regions as the law stipulates, and even all districts.
Yes. If today we are saying that the law was so harsh or is so demanding, I shudder to think what we would have said in 1992 when the law came in, because then our political parties were not as sophisticated as they are today. I think that what the framers of the law felt was that they did not want people to just sit in their rooms and go and register political parties. It is also a way of holding people responsible and accountable. If you intend to form a political party, then it shouldn't be you and your family only. This law, for me, is meant to dissuade people who would take advantage of the laws and come up with all manner of organizations calling them political parties. Even with this law, see how our political landscape has been mushroomed with all manner of political parties. And so I do not think that the law is too harsh or is too demanding. I think that the law is meant to regulate and to ensure that persons who say they want to form political parties would, as a matter of fact, be able to meet a certain minimum threshold, so that we don't have family and friends political parties sitting in their bedroom and organizing the party from there. I think this law is good. It shows a commitment on the part of a group of people who say they want to form a political party to be able to roll out offices to show that they are present. But I want to agree with Bernard Moner's point of view when he said that, what's the definition of an office? Is it just to have a room and paint it in political colors and say that's an office? Or there must be some minimum infrastructure, facilities in the office. Most of the offices that we say they are political party offices, when you open them, there's nothing inside, but just that you have political party colors in there. Would that qualify as a party office? So again, I think that we should demand that if you open an office, some basic, facilities should be in there. There must be somebody who manages the office. You must have at least a table and a chair. You must have maybe a computer and a printer. This basic minimum. So there must be inspection of even those who say they have the offices. Those who even say they have, there must be inspection, so that if they don't meet the threshold, they can also be closed down. But I think that the law is good to ensure responsibility on the part of anybody who says that he wants to form political parties. By merely painting offices with political colors is not enough. I think that, for me, is not enough.
Well, the other side of the argument, even though this is law and inherent in the law are the various rules and regulations that the parties need to abide by, that the current state of the world has shown that you don't need physical structures to create an office. Indeed, you could have a virtual assembly points, and there could be the rallying point by which...
Sure. I know in some organizations, they will say that they don't insist that you should come and sit in the office 24 hours or 8 hours a day. What they think you can do is to deliver. Wherever you are, deliver on time. You don't need to physically be in the office. And I think that's the kind of argument you are putting across. That can they operate their parties from wherever they are? Can they continue to manage their parties wherever they find themselves? Yes. So if we are calling for a debate on that and calling for an amendment of the law, because I indicated to you that the law for the time being is the law. And so until we amend that provision, which says that they must have presence in some number of districts and then in all regional capitals, I think that we should try to abide. We are a nation of laws. We are a nation of people who respect our laws. So this law is there. Should we disregard the law? I don't think so. What I think is that let's obey it. But if there's need for reforms, if there's need for amendments, if there's need for us to scrap it, let's begin to advocate for that and see how it will go. But I think that we should begin to respect our electoral laws. Yeah.
If we say we want to implement the law to the latter, it also means that many of the parties will be crowded out.
Sure. And so that's where the balancing act must come. Because in my mind's eye, I see only the NDC and the MPP maybe meeting this threshold or qualifying per this regulation. But our constitution talks about multi-partyism, multi-party democracy. Clearly, if you enforce this law, then we're going to have a two-party state, which the constitution frowns upon. And so the balancing act must come in here. And that's why I think that that is what Afarijan took into consideration and did not resurrect the law. But are our laws supposed to just be on the statute books without being implemented? So these discussions that we are having throws up a number of things. The fact that you don't want to return or to make this country a two-party state, and the fact that there's a law sitting on our statute book which must be implemented, and then the fact that there's a need for some amendments, to take on board the realities on the ground, that you can operate from anywhere, as we talked about. So what I'm just doing now is teasing out the issues. Probably in today's IPAC, some of these issues will be addressed. Yeah.
No, we'll see how that goes. Now, let's look at this very subject about the minority and majority in Parliament insisting, or perhaps trying to forge ahead in finding some consensus on the date for holding election on November 7. It's become an issue over the last, I believe, 36 hours. Now, particularly when we know that there are concerns that because the bill was laid in Parliament at this so and so, it may not necessarily be meeting the timelines, because Parliament would have to rise. There are things that need to be done. For example, if there's supposed to be amendments to that very Article 291, the bill is supposed to be gazetted 2 times within 3 months, and the first gazette, of course, was done in March, but it needs to take a number of days, and then some relapse of additional 10 days, an extra period, and then before we say that is full law.
I think going down memory lane, let's see why there was the need to shift the time from the date from 7th December to 7th November. You notice that anytime there's a runoff, the runoff is done 2 weeks after the main elections. Now, there's little time for, if there's going to be a change of government, there's little time for handing over notes, there's little time to hand over, because 7th November, 7th January is the date that you must hand over, the previous government must hand over. Now, in order not to create a lacuna where we'll have 7th November come, but because handing over processes are not completed, we will not have the swearing in of the president, there was a need, and across board, to shift the time back to 7th November. So as we speak now, in principle, all stakeholders, political parties, are agreed to the 7th November deadline or the date. However, the processes leading up to the change, because it's a constitutional matter, it's one of the entrenched clauses. The date has been fixed in the Constitution. So if we're going to come back to 7th November and not 7th December, we need to amend the provision. Now, when you look at the amendment of the non-entrenched clauses, which this provision is one of them, it's a long process. You were trying to enumerate it. 2 gazettes. Luckily, the first gazette has been done. My understanding is that early second week of June, that process would have been completed. Then we need a second gazette. Beyond that, we also need 10 days for this to go to the president, and then you to also go to the Council of State. It's a process, a long process. What I can see happen if we actually want to have our elections on the 7th November is that Parliament may have to do an emergency. They may have to be recalled from their break, if they go on break, to ensure that they are able to meet this deadline. Question is, why did we wait that long to start the process?
But we've been talking about 7 for a very
a long time. Yeah, after the last elections, we started talking. But also, I'm not sure whether
you had a consensus of the party.
Yeah, whether the bill left cabinet in good time. But I thought that the EC should have been proactive on this date. But be that as it may, I'm sure, because we are all agreed on the 7th November, Parliament will have to work extra and have emergency sessions to be able to contain this.
And to remove some of these, to make this amendment to these clauses, and because of the nature, you need 2/3.
2/3 of the entire House, not those present.
Sure.
The entire House. So
that becomes very difficult if consensus is not built.
Yeah, so in this one, luckily for us, all the political parties want the date to come to 7th November. I cannot foresee any frustration of this process, even though I heard Nitowol talk about if the EC because he thinks that the EC is aligned to the NDC, and that if the EC continues behaving that way, they will not cooperate. But if you don't cooperate for the 7th November, what do we lose? We don't lose anything. We may only lose the handing over processes, but it does not inure to one side or the other. This is not an issue that benefits one side. This is an issue that benefits both sides of the house. In fact, minority, because they if in the unlikely event that they win, they will even need more time to receive handing over notes and those things. So I do not think that they will do that. The 2/3 of the entire house, I'm sure, would be able to meet to decide on this matter, because, like I said, all parties across the board are agreed with the 7th November deadline.
But it means that, of course, they have to recall, but we have a sitting of 21 days. It's a 21-day sitting period. So they don't have to be on recess and then be recalled only on the day of the election. It means that within that period they have to be sitting.
Yeah. If
it's a parliament.
I don't know when they would break for this session that they have come to. If all these processes cannot be contained within their sitting, that's where I said, then they will have to be recalled back. So they will have shorter holidays because of this very important issue. So the recall is in respect of their inability, if the time doesn't allow, to see through the bill. If they have to break, I'm afraid they may have to be recalled to continue sitting to ensure that the bill comes into effect.
Well, so we'll see how the Electoral Commission will go about it. Yeah. Already we know that the first gazette has been done. It was done some time in March, and so we're hoping that that could be improved. Let's look at this. The subject of the NDC or so boycotting or not boycotting a debate to be organized by the Institute of Economic Affairs. And we know that they have been organizing debate for presidential elections, I believe the last 3 elections since 2004. But particularly when the NDC has raised concerns about the consultative processes that led to the decision to be taken, then I guess everybody needs to be interested. What's the decision really from the NDC?
The NDC, from where I sit and know of, complained about the lack of consultation. The NDC, just like all the other political parties, were not happy with the IEA going ahead to announce dates without involving the political parties. If you do that, and newsmen go to the political parties, they will say, oh, we are not aware, because you've not consulted them. So that's what played out. That's where you had the NDC complaining that what the IEA did was to put the cart before the horse. Now, I have been on record to have said that if they had consulted, they would have known that within that period that they said they were going to do their debate, the president would have been out of this country attending General Assembly meeting at the UN. I mean, you know, the president is a permanent feature of that process. So could this be could we have avoided this? Yes, we could have avoided this by consultation. But I've heard Jim Mensah indicate that those days are still open for discussions. But my understanding is that this was a concern of the NDC. I've not heard that the NDC NEC or FEC executives have gone to meet and that they've taken decision not to attend the IEA debate. The major concern was with the consultation issues. I have not known of any decision by NEC or FEC to say that the NDC has come to a firm conclusion that it was not going to take part. That I must say.
I guess the newspaper reports are also very much premised on a media statement made by Mr. Koku Anyidoho, who is a deputy
Deputy General Secretary.
Yeah, Deputy General Secretary. Deputy General Secretary of the party.
And there are 2 Deputy General Secretaries who have contradicted themselves.
Who have said different things.
Different things. You have Lawson and Koku Anyidoho. But first and foremost, I wanted to find, and they were both speaking on the same network. What is the import of the radio station trying to, as it were, corner the two personalities?
Well, does it matter?
On that same issue,
it's a matter of interest.
On the same issue, you call two party officials to speak on it. Clearly, you don't expect them to repeat the same things. So, first and foremost, I thought that the radio station has lured them into the situation that we find ourselves, where they have contradicted themselves. I also thought that the two of them should have known and not go out there to contradict each other. I think that now the issue is, from the same NDC camp, you have two top executives contradicting each other. How do we take it? It sends a bad signal that the executives are not speaking with each other, and for that matter, you have this outcome. My candid opinion is that they shouldn't be quick to want to, speak to the media. If they are called and they think that they are not seized with some information, I think that they could just tell the media station that I don't have information yet, I will get back to you. But this is in bad taste, where you have Lawson contradicting Koko Anyidoho on this matter of whether the president or the NDC will take part in the debate or not. For me, smacks of well, I think that they could have done better. The two of them could have done better
than this. But we've had presidential debates in the past, and I remember since 2000 the debate has been on. But let's look at it. What are the pros and cons of having a debate? How does that have a certain reflection on what decision the electorates have or take, and then also the impact of the political parties in endearing themselves to the ordinary voter?
I will tell you that these debates, the IEA debates, are only beneficial to the middle class and the upper class. I can tell you this. It's the middle class and the upper class who are enthused about this debate. But the majority, who are the grassroots, do not see themselves, associating themselves with this debate, because for them, what motivates them to go and vote are different matters from what the people talk about. They look at visible things that would inform them when they are going to the polls. But with the middle class and the upper class, yes, these debates are important. As a political party, would you want to take advantage of every forum? Yes, you want to take advantage of every forum, including your own forum, and to ensure that you don't give advantage to your opponent. So on that score, yes. But do they determine who becomes the president? I'm afraid to say no. The IEA debates do not produce presidents for us, because majority of the voters are not in that class I talked about. They are not in the middle and they are not in the upper classes. Majority of the Ghanaians who take that decision to elect somebody as a president do not associate themselves with this debate. So I think that it is important that as a political party, you take advantage of all avenues, all forums, to ensure that you are able to leverage on your campaign processes. It is on that score that I think the NDC will not boycott, provided the dates and times are suitable to the party. Like I indicated to you, unless I get briefing, I don't think that there has been a decision not to attend this IEA debate. But the IEA has contributed, and indeed, when we are even talking about the change of date from 7th November to December to 7th November, I can tell you that IEA contributed in bringing about this change. So, yes, as an institution, they have contributed immensely to the development of our democratic processes. But on this occasion, I think that they got it wrong. They must accept it in good faith, go back to the drawing board, involve all the political players, and then we can move on from there.
Will your party debate, participate in a debate, would you advise, so to speak?
No,
I know that it's not your decision to make personally, but on your personal level with your political experience, would you advise your flag bearer to be part of it?
Oh, don't forget that we have a president and a flag bearer who is articulate, communicator himself, very much on top of the issues. This is a president who, for once, met the media and asked that they should ask questions from archaeology to zoology. He did not give a prepared speech. He was ready to take questions from all angles. This is not a man who chicken out. He's done a lot of debate. And indeed, he has been the first sitting president to take part in this debate. The first time that a sitting president boycotted was President Kufuor in 2004, you know, and it was alleged that Professor Mills was also going to boycott it until his demise. And so when John Mahama took over as assistant president, he offered himself. So this is not a person who would chicken out. But again, because in our party, the president and the party are in tandem, you notice that when the president said that he wants a one-on-one debate with the opposition leader, he quickly added that provided the NDC will be comfortable with the debate. So we have a leader who does not impose himself on the party, but consult the party. And so that, for me, is a decision by the party. That, for me, is a decision of the party to agree to let the president go. But I'm of the conviction, and I know deep in my heart, that if it were left to the president alone, wanting to have a debate with Nana Akufo-Addo, he would have gone to the debate without any obstacles.
Well, we'll see how that goes. And you are saying that the president's a communicator, so...
yes, he is a communicator.
So
he would be able to better, you know, explain the questions and the answers, explain his government policies to the people. He's always longed for such opportunities, and wherever he goes on his tours, they call them account to the people tour, he doesn't hesitate to have interviews with local radio stations, and I think that is also part of the debate.
Well, we have to end the discussion on this very one, but let's go to this. About 16 refugees, mostly from DR Congo, Benin, Togo, and Burundi, are seeking shelter in Ghana. But are they currently living on the lawn? But they are currently living on the lawn of a benevolent Ghanaian, just some few meters from the premises of the Ghana Refugee Board. They were formerly refugees in Benin, and now they've been given the option by the UNHCR to seek shelter from Ghana and Nigeria or go back to their home countries. We bring you a roving today by Derek Ekosam.
Refugees Board, and just behind me you could see some settlers who have just come in. Per my interactions with them, I understand that these are refugees from Congo, from Nigeria, and some other parts of Africa. According to them, they've been here for almost 2 months, and when they got here, they went to see the Ghana Refugees Board. They told them their predicament, and they were told to move out. Actually, they settled in front of the Ghana Refugees Board, and then they were evacuated. They were told to find another place to go, but this is where they finally are. They eat here, they sleep here, they actually bath and do all other activities here. I have one of them with me. I want to speak to him. So he narrates a story and tell me why they are here. I understand he's a Nigerian from one of the states, Ogoni State in Nigeria. So you come close and let's talk. What's your name, sir?
I am Mr. Victor. I am member of the movement for the survival of the Ogoni people. It's an ethnic group in the southern part of Nigeria. You know, that is the organization which our late Ken Saro-Wiwa, a renowned African man who fought for the human rights. That is the area he came from.
Okay, let's put that on hold now. Why have you come to Ghana to settle in front of somebody's house? Because that's somebody's lawn.
Okay, well, you know, it is not pleasing to anybody to sleep outside. It is an abnormal condition. Well, why I settle outside is because I have not gotten any place to stay.
But you come from Nigeria. You have a home in Nigeria. Why have you left your home in Nigeria to come here?
Yes, I have a home in Nigeria, and where I left my home, it is not today I left my home. I was in Benin. It was out of persecution. You know, most of my colleagues, members of my organization, the Movement of Survival of the Ogoni people, were killed, were persecuted.
Persecuted by who?
That was persecuted by the government in power and other most of those to silence.
President Buhari-led administration, or the one that just went out?
No, the issue of the Ogoni people started from 1990 when we presented our Bill of Rights to the government of Nigeria. And even during this democracy, we were even happy to welcome the democracy in Nigeria. And there have been successive administration, right from Obasanjo, Jonathan, and even till today.
Okay, so tell me, how long have you been here?
I have been here in Ghana on the 4th of April.
That's like 1 month.
1 month and some weeks now.
So you've been here for 1 month, but why did you decide to settle in Ghana of all the African countries? And tell me, I know there's a UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Have you been there? Have you also been to the Ghana Refugees Board? Because where you are is very close to the Ghana Refugees Board.
Yes. Well, when the office in Benin, where I was living, the UNHCR in Benin, where I was living, was closed, there was no protection, no help again. You know, we wrote to Geneva, really, and said it is better we look for some other country closer to us. Though before I get to Ghana, I cross Togo, but I choose to be in Ghana because at least I have heard of the democracy in Ghana, how Ghana government is pathetic.
So you have been here for 1 month, and from my interactions with you earlier, you went to the UNHCR, you told them about your predicament, they asked you to see the Ghana Refugees Board. What have you been told from the Ghana Refugees Board? What have you been told by them?
Okay. When I get to Ghana Refugee Board, really after interaction, they give me the registration form, which I filled, though I was still expecting whether at least an attestation or what we call refugee status, provisional refugee status can be given to me so that I can move out, or other assistance can be given. Though yet, we are still like this. We are sleeping just at the corridor with my keys. My wife.
Oh, you are here with your wife and kids?
My wife and my 3 kids.
3 kids?
Yeah, 3 children.
Migrated from Nigeria with all of them to this place?
No. They born in Benin.
Okay.
Yeah, they born in Benin.
As in Benin, like the country Benin, or Benin?
The country Benin. Benin Republic.
Okay, it means that...
I've been a refugee in Benin Republic for some time. That's why I say
Why did you move from Benin to Ghana?
The United Nations office in Ghana, Benin has been closed. Okay. And the Benin government rejected us, said they can't continue to keep us.
So why did you decide to settle in this area of all places?
No, it is not a choice. If it is my choice, I cannot settle just in front of compound outside, sleeping outside. It's not a choice, but it is a situation that keeps that way, expecting that the Ghana government and the UNHCR may look into my case.
Have you spoken to the Nigerian High Commission here?
I have not spoken to the Nigerian High Commission.
But that is like your immediate parents in Ghana. They are supposed to take care of your welfare because you're Nigerian.
Those who have been taking care of my protection all over the years is the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Okay. So when I come to Ghana, I have to go straight to the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. Okay,
but these two bodies have failed you. The Ghana Refugees Board, they've not been of help. The UNHCR, so they directed you to the Ghana Refugees Board. But so if all of these have failed you, don't you think that your next port of call should be the Nigerian High Commission?
Well, I have not considered the Ghana Refugee Board or the UNHCR as a failure. I'm still looking at it that they are, well, sooner or later, the UNHCR and the Refugee Board have to meet to discuss and have a resolution of how to make a way out for me.
All right, thank you very much.
That's Nigerian. I think you should have just mingled into the society. Well, we also have joining us for us to help conclude the discussions, Kobna Ochridako, a member of Parliament for Tecate. Thanks for joining me, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, I know traffic could be the reason why you're not in the studio very early, but we're just having the discussion on the subject of the dates for the change of the election period. And we know that it's come up particularly among the members of Parliament as to whether the processes the EC used was swift enough and so would meet the timeline for the amendments.
Yes, it's very possible if we all work together. I believe that the EC has delayed, and they have to admit so, because if you look at when these issues were talked about, they were talked about as part of the transitional programs, and therefore people thought that by now all the legal processes would have been done. But if you look at the timetable that we are working with currently, the best time Parliament can look at it will be around July. Okay, and that means that all other things have to work properly before we get to July. Otherwise, it might be a difficulty. Yes. So as I speak today, I know that we are waiting for the second gazette to be completed, and we are hoping that by June it can go to the Council of State. If that is done, then we should be fine.
But I was saying that it's possible you can be the call from recess.
Basically, yes. Basically, yes. Yes, and that will be July because of the 30-day periods. I mean, we have 3 months within which we
When would you have gone on recess?
Currently?
After this? Yeah, now you've been
for
recalled.
this session.
Yeah, for this
session. When would you have gone on recess?
The date is not very specific, so it will be communicated along the line. Yeah.
Okay, but there's this very thing about it's a parliament. It should be a parliamentary working period, or
sitting days. Yeah.
Period. So it means that you'll be required to sit the whole of that period of 21 days, or mainly the large part.
Yes, basically.
All right. Would you fault the EC to say that they didn't start the whole processes early? Because I mean, the issue of transition and the reasons we are doing for the change of date had been said since 2009, I believe.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I said. And I believe that there's another problem with the EC's own transition from Afarijan to Madam Charlotte Osei. And then when she came, you know, her priorities are different. Our priorities are basically more to do with the independence of the EC than some of the issues that needed to be discussed. So I feel that it is time that they set up, because when they disrupt us, it also affects Parliament, because we also have our campaigns to do. And therefore, even though it's a national assignment, they also have to consider us in some of their planning as we go along.
The smaller parties, now they are raising concerns. For example, on the front page of the Ghanaian Times, it said Nana Konadu, other leaders to sue the Electoral Commission. And we know this is emanating from the Electoral Commission's decision to enforce its regulation to the letter, which stipulates basically that all parties should have offices in regional and district
offices.
Yes, in districts
offices.
And also
regional offices. Yeah.
Yes.
About 2/3 of them. They should have a 2/3 representation.
At least.
Yes.
Not less than 2/3.
Yes. Yes. I think that first and foremost, the EC itself will have to start satisfying itself as to whether those registering political parties have the means to set up these offices, and to what extent does these political parties have ownership at the community and then the district levels. Unfortunately, a lot of the parties, I beg to say, are just more or less like mushrooms. Even in Accra, some of them don't seem to even have proper offices, and therefore I find it very difficult that they continue to be engaged as stakeholders when other political parties are really on the ground. I believe that we are just not being fair. If it's a matter of just people registering political parties, then anybody could just go and register political parties and work and become part of the electoral stakeholder community. Unfortunately, I believe that a lot of the political parties that we have currently, apart from the MPP, NDC, CPP, and PNC, even PNC, you find it difficult to even locate their offices in the regions and in the districts. So I believe that it is time that the EC actually does a proper audit and then tell each of the political parties the areas they need to up their game. Otherwise, they should be taken off or disqualified from even competing in a lot of these political processes. Otherwise, anybody gets up and creates a political party. Anybody. And it's not proper. And it's just not proper.
Mr. Malba, do you think that the smaller parties are a nuisance?
They are not. They contribute to the multi-party democratic process that we have. Under the Constitution, we are supposed to be a multi-party state. But I also think that if this law is implemented to the letter, all these parties who will be affected will be coalesced into a bigger group. They will begin to identify where they want to belong to.
In
terms of even they themselves coming together to form a stronger, smaller party, if that's the way I should put it. Yes, so I just hope that if they are going to be disbanded, they will not die. They would re-engineer themselves. And because I am speaking this way so that we don't defeat the purpose of the constitution, which is that we have a multi-party democracy. I don't want us to remain only NDC MPP. I don't want that. I want the constitution to be adhered to. So if the political parties are listening, there have been so many talks about CPP and PNC. Is it the time? Is it the time that they should now agree, faced with the reality that you can't even get offices? Can you now agree, based on this, to now come together and put your strengths together? Now you can now have the parties, your party offices in more than the 270 constituencies. So I think it now calls for them to, now that reality is staring them in the face, they will now begin to be serious about their major talks.
Well, somebody will say that you, the big parties, you just want to be so much stern on the smaller ones and just want to have your monopoly or have.
Not at all. Not at all. The idea is that political parties represent people, okay? And therefore, if I'm coming to the table with, say, 4 million, and somebody is coming to the table with just 10 people or 100 people, and we are having a discussion, and there's a vote, and we are actually going to vote on equal basis, then I believe that it does not augur well for those who are representing the larger population, okay? Because if I'm coming with 4 million, you are coming with 100, and we are voting, and you have 1 vote, and I have 1 vote representing my people, then it's not interesting. So I believe that if we have to implement the law to the letter, people will check themselves and make sure that they are really solid on the ground before they even register. I mean, political parties are not jokes, are not for jokes. If you look at the constitution, the formation of political parties is right there in our constitution, and therefore it shows how even the country as a state recognizes political parties. For instance, if the party is going for, say, primaries, look at the space that even parliament have to make for parliamentary candidates for them to go and undertake political party assignments, because we see that as part of national assignment, okay? And therefore, if somebody is just registered, it's one-man party, he speaks, nobody can query him, he hijacks the party for himself, and the people on the ground doesn't really feel the effect of his effort, then there's no point having the party in the first place. But like he said, if people have to coalesce around one ideology, you know, don't have a problem. But if you look at this country, the ideologies, they're all already being represented. So I see that most of the time when people leave political parties, they leave out of simple disagreement. Usually there's never been issues of real political, philosophical issues that are taking people away from parties. It's just personal issues that people use as a basis to leave political parties, and that is not very good.
Well, so we have to end our discussions this morning. Thanks for joining us again. You tried very much to join the discussion. And we've had in the studio Kobna Archery Documents, a member of parliament for Tecate. Thanks for joining me. And then also Abraham Amaleba. He's a member of he's a member of the NDC's legal and communication teams, and also a legal practitioner. Thanks, Abraham.
Thanks.
All right. I wanted to add more poses to the session. We're taking a break. We'll have.
All right.